I mean, we're at 5 hours, and we're about to add another, 1 hour of Ben's opinions, and then who knows how many of Chris's, but we'll see in the future. We're about to listen to those in a moment. But before that, okay, so this piece of shit who's responsible for all of this, Paul W.S. Anderson's made a lot of bad movies. One of them, the one movie that I think of his that I think is objectively enjoyable, that I do defend a little bit, is Alien vs. Predator. I think Mortal Kombat's fucked up. I think Resident Evil movies are weird. He has some other shit on there that I don't really care about. But I like the Alien vs. Predator movie, the first one. I think the second one's enjoyable too, and it has some fun aspects.
On its own merit?
On its own merit, no. Not even on its own merit. It's pretty shitty on its own merits. But no, I think the first one is a fun movie that's completely out of pocket of either of those franchises, but it is an enjoyable little crossover movie. Now...
real quick, I'll say, I actually, when I first watched that first one, I remember... There was two scenes I will always remember. One, there's a scene where a guy gets zooped out of nowhere. Like, it was hysterical. I remember watching that with a bunch of friends, and we died laughing when we were watching it. And also, I remember pausing it while watching it at a scene where, like, the predator is in the scene and the alien is, like, in the shadows, but, like, visible. Yeah. And there's actually my phone wallpaper for a while because it was one of those, like, badass
cool shot,
pauses.
It's a fun, cool shot. Crossover movies. So now, Ed, you have the opportunity. Now I also had Ben and Chris chime in on their opinion between these two. So
do they
two
agree
crossover
on the same?
Films. Well, we'll see what their opinions are once we listen to it. But the two movies. The first option. Ed, how familiar are you with the Grudge series? Have you seen any of them?
I know that there's a little ghost boy in one because of Scary Movie 3.
Okay. Have you seen the Ring movies?
I have not, and of course I know the basics on them.
Okay. So you've never seen Sadako versus Kayako, aka The Ring versus The Grudge?
I have not.
Yeah, that's movie number one. We'll get deep into J-horror of the fucking history of those two movies and how that movie utterly fucks up the entire premise of both of those franchises to make this movie happen. It's very stupid. Unless we do the other movie. Recently, I've been following a YouTuber named Quentin Reviews who has this 40-hour long thing about Nickelodeon cinematic sitcom, the Nickelodeon sitcom universe, all those TV shows and the arcs that it's been through, and of course in recent times the Quiet on Set doc about Dan Schneider and all his crazy disgustingness. But he has a 40-hour long series covering all of iCarly, all of Victorious, all of Sam and Cat, which is incredibly funny. I've never watched those shows in my life, but he is an incredibly humorous fucking YouTuber, and his series is really fantastic. I suggest everyone check it out, including the doc Quiet on Set. But there was a 3-episode made-for-TV movie called iParty with Victorious that was an iCarly and Victorious crossover movie. Now, you may think, well, that can't possibly be counted as a movie. It's longer than Terror of Tiny Town, so it counts. So, the choices are Sadako versus Kayako or iParty with Victorious. Now, of course, like I said, I pitched those two. And of course, if we get into iParty with Victorious, we have to cover, I don't know if your wife's read Jeanette McCurdy's book, I'm Glad My Mom Died.
Did.
That book is harrowing. And if you read that book, I want Leanne to watch that movie if we pick that. It is harrowing, and
she watches them with
it'll completely recontextualize that fucking show into the true horrible nightmare. Or if you watch Quiet on Set, you'll be disgusted. But
I watched Quiet on Set.
Yeah. It's there's a ton to talk about, but we can get into all that stuff if we did that movie. So yes, your vote. We have also Chris and Ben's votes for Sadako versus Kayako, or iParty with Victorious. Now, we can hold off on your vote, but till after we hear, because, I would love to ramble for the next 30 seconds so we officially hit 5 hours before that. So, Ed, between those two, and before we listen to the opinions of our good friends Ben and Chris, unless you want to wait till you give your opinion afterwards.
I'll give my vote afterwards,
your vote.
which just a minute, but it is a I'm interested. Honestly, I'm interested to hear their opinions on it because on one hand, I'm not as
Yay,
familiar.
5 hours.
Yay!
Okay.
I'm not as familiar with J horrors at times, as I am with Nickelodeon stuff. And but on the other hand, I do like learning and exploring stuff that I'm not as knowledgeable on. So I almost kind of want to if it's a tie, then fuck me, I guess. But I kind of want to hear and see and let the two of them push me one way or the other before I make an ultimate decision.
Okay.
So,
all right. So now, officially at the 5 hour mark, we're going to take a break. We're going to listen. You'll hear this to listeners, Chris and Ben's opinion on Monster Hunter and the movie itself. I might as well go into the questions that I asked them in case I know that Ben does address them, but I'd love to see if Chris does as well. So I sent them 10 questions in regards to this movie series, and which we've also discussed on the podcast over the course of the last 5 hours. Number 1, top 3 and bottom 3 monsters from the games. Explain in as much detail as possible. Number 2, second and primary weapon choices. Question number 3, favorite Capcom series outside of Monster Hunter, aka Phoenix Wright, Street Fighter, Devil May Cry. Question number 4 was your opinion on the isekai genre. Number 5, did you recognize any of the actors from this film? Number 6 was your favorite or well done aspects of the movie. Number 7 was the worst, most poorly handled aspects of the movie. Number 8 was how would you pitch a better movie? What monsters would you use? Who would you cast? Etc. Number 9 was what other movie garbage films that you've seen do you think were better than this? I gave examples. I know that they've seen Warcraft, Revenge of the Sith, Willy's Wonderland.
I know that Chris has seen Freddy Got Fingered.
And I know that Ben,
which we all know.
We all see is the best.
We know that Chris will absolutely tell us
of course,
in his response that has been already recorded and is about to be playing now or listening to. He will tell us how there is no film better than Freddy Got Fingered.
Of course. And then number 10, which movie should we do next? It's Math's choice. Sadako versus Kayako, or I Party with Victorious. I give them a little quick description of them in case they weren't familiar. So now we will see their opinions and we will rank up votes on see what the next episode of Action Toon Bros. Or no, I'm already getting confused. We're too far into this podcast. Movie Garbage. The next episode of Movie Garbage. Who we're going to see. Stay tuned.
Hello, gentlemen. And thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this recording. This is a very wonderful movie to me, and I'm glad you thought of me for this as well. This is Ben Sturgeon from Action Toon Bros, and thanks to Matt, I have about 10 questions to answer for you guys, since I am not able to be there presently. So, let's get right to it then. Top 3 and bottom 3 monsters from the games. Explain in as much detail as possible. So, I'm going to start with my bottom 3. So, in my order, I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, as in least crappy but still crappy all the way to number 1. And I'm going to put an honorable mention that counts as a one above all kind of situation. But, in the fairness, I'm going to do these 3 first. So, number 3 for me is Khezu. Now, don't get me wrong. Khezu is lightning, which is the best element in that game. Khezu is kind of has a cool, concept to it, whereas, every time you hunt a monster, you get fight music because they see you. Khezu cannot see you, so its fight music is just the background. As well as the fight noise, there is no music for him because he cannot see you. But that's about where the and some of his weapons are actually really cool and armor designs. Some of them are. But that's about where all the positives end for him. His design is very kind of bleh. And by that I mean not only am I you can't talk Khezu without the phallic neck thing that he has going on. But he's just also his fight is annoying. I have fought Kezu, where every time I would land one single hit, at random intervals in every fight, he would, at the very least one time, maybe twice, get hit with one attack and then roar like 3 or 4 times in a row before finally doing things. And I honestly think that Kezu is kind of a diet Giganox. I think Giganox did it better because they're supposed to be similar. They have similar move sets, like, jumping on the wall, hanging from the ceiling and stuff. But Giganox made it like really more unique, whereas Kezu kind of was just in my opinion. And let's not discuss how Kezu is one of the many monsters that fell under the oh, what's its variant? Okay, it's going to be the exact same, only kind of beefier, and it's going to change its color. See, unlike Pink Rathian and Azure Rathalos, where they actually change their movesets and they're actually formidable, like Red Kezu, it's like, oh, it's the exact same, only for higher rank. No different moves. It's red. And I just thought that was kind of lazy. Now, number 2, my middle ground for the worst, the silver medal of You Suck. I forget the name. Balongo, big white monkey with like the big saber tooth fangs. Don't get me wrong, it's a precursor to like Rajang because it kind of has the same like movement and body type as Rajang, but honestly, he was kind of a boring fight to me. Not saying he wasn't difficult, mind you, because when you first get to him, it's always difficult to fight unless you know what you're doing, kind of thing. And since it's been so long since I fought him, I'd probably like get close to feigning or anything because it's been a while since I played the classic games. But Balongo is just nah. He just was kind of a wasted potential kind of thing because you could do a lot with him. Sure, yeah, he can he's aggressive. Sure, yeah, he's if I remember correctly, he can like throw snow at you like Lagambi, but he's not really rememberable to me. He's not memorable because you say that and he's like, oh yeah, he existed. Moving on, kind of thing. I just didn't like him. And who knows, maybe I like some of this information was bullshit. That's how rememberable. That's how much I remember him. He's just he was just a thing and that was it. He's a bigger monkey in the snow with big fangs. And you can break those fangs. Now, the number 1, this one's a little bit of a cheat because it's more than one monster, but hear me out on this one. The number 1 for me is every single Great/Drome monster that is not Great Jagras. So, hear me out on this one, like I said. They're great for tutorial. They are fantastic for like a tutorial monster. But that's about it. You do not need to go any further than that with them because it's not needed. Because all they are literally, they're like the regular. Like, I'm going to use Great Jackie, the very first great one that I ever fought. It's like, oh, remember those little tiny Jaggies? What if we just made it larger with a bigger hitbox and a bigger hitbox to hitting you, but it acted exactly the same as the little one? And maybe give it a little more hit points. I don't know. There, we got it. We got good monster. Go, send it off. To me, the Great/Drome monsters, they kind of do that to me. Like they're just the same as their little counterparts, except for that. But fortunately, Great Jagras changed the mold a little bit. This is why Great Jagras is not in this group, and I actually like Great Jagras as a tutorial monster because he's not just he's not like a Jagras but bigger and does the exact same thing like all the other ones did in the past. No, he actually has a different moveset. He can swallow things. He can turn fat. He can spit things at you after he ate. You can beat his stomach up and he can actually, like, he could just vomit everything out. But no, Great Jagras is actually the peak of the great / drum monsters. Everything else is just, they're the same as the little ones, only bigger and more hit points. Me. I always thought that was a lazy concept. But now the honorable mention. I told you there was an honorable mention, a one above all. And I didn't put this in my bottom 3 list because this is technically cheating. Because, let's be honest, you meant big monsters, not small monsters. That's a hint, by the way, that this is going to be a small monster. But the one above all, the worst one ever, it needs to be addressed right here, right now, unless it already has because I'm pre-recording this, is Conchu. Conchus suck ass. They are more deadly than the big monster whatsoever. They are the biggest hindrance ever. Conchus. Kill them all. Make them go extinct. I hate Conchus. For more information, dial 1-800-CONCHU-DIE. If that actually fit, that'd be hilarious. But no, seriously, like, Conchus, like, little monsters are supposed to hinder you. Conchus hinder you to a T. They roll up into a ball, a near indestructible ball, and they roll up at you off camera and everything. It's just like, oh my gosh, they are the worst thing ever. They're the worst thing ever to exist. I'm glad that they didn't bring them back, but now with Yankutku being introduced in Wilds, let's be honest, they're probably going to be back. This is probably going to be back. So then, yeah, that's the bottom 3 monsters for me, including Conchu. Now, for the top 3 monsters for me. So, number 3 obviously is the bronze medal of the best monsters in my opinion. Number 3 has to go to Nergigante and Ruiner Nergigante. Yes, I'm putting both of them in there. Nergigante's design is fantastic. Nergigante is a menacing presence. Like, when you first are introduced to him in World, even when you meet Ruiner in, like, the later Iceborne expansion, he is menacing, and they make you know in story just how scary this guy is. He's the not only is he the flagship, but he is like the first elder dragon you fight. For those of you who don't know World very much, of the listeners, everyone here knows about this one, but I love his design. I love just the concept of him because, you know, it's like, oh, Monster Hunter World introduced, like, you know, charge ups before they do a big old discharge kind of thing. I think they did. One of you two I know will correct me if I'm wrong on this one. Points at Matt and Ed. But yeah, like, you could break all of his spikes on his body and he could just regrow them back kind of thing. He is super aggressive. He keeps you on your toes no matter what. His discharge attack is devastating if you're not prepared. And I love his story aspect. Like, I love the story aspect of him. He is literally the eater of gods. Where, again, to the viewers who don't know anything about Monster Hunter, there's a classification of monster that I mentioned earlier called Elder Dragon. They're pretty much, like, if we were doing a very, very, very loose comparison, they're like legendary Pokemon of Monster Hunter, only you can't capture these ones. You have to literally murder them. You can't even capture them. You just have to kill them. And with Nergigante, he's the one that eats Elder Dragons, because Elder Dragons are like cataclysmic forces that have control over many elements, have, like, the weather, any aspect or anything like that. They can control that shit, and they can upset the balance of the ecosystem. Nergigante is there to make sure that doesn't happen by literally beating the shit out of and devouring these Elder Dragons. And it's even further pointed about this in Iceborne, when he gets he's not just Nergigante, he is Ruiner Nergigante. So picture Nergigante in World, but really more aggressive, much more stronger, and more pissed off, and could eat. It literally could probably fly towards like wherever the realm of gods are and eat them all. I love Nergigante, and this is just number 3. Number 2, however, is the entire Magala line. So imagine, if you will, dear listeners, there's just you're living out. You're just living your best life. All of a sudden, all of the wildlife starts going crazy. Like, they get this disease and it makes them crazy. It makes them stronger, but it makes them crazy. And you don't know what it is. And it's also affecting people too. Like, it can affect people too. And all of a sudden, you find out it is a giant, like, sleek, black, dragon-esque thing. Now, mind you, I describe it as dragon-esque thing. I'll get to that in a moment. But, yeah. And that's just Gore Magala. There's 2 other ones that I love the most. Gore Magala is really fun because introduced in 4/4U, if I remember correctly, Gore Magala is by far a very unique monster, and so are the other ones that in this line. Because first off, he introduced the Frenzy Blight, which, yes, like I said earlier, can affect you. Because monsters can be aggressive. So, like, there's a certain give and take. You go up, you fight some, you have to dodge and everything like that, and make sure you don't get hurt, and then you have to go back and attack. Well, Gore Magala throws that out the window when you become blighted with the Frenzy Blight. Because in order for you to get the most benefits out of it, you have to go up and you have to start being you have to be the aggressor. You have to go up and you have to start attacking more and more and more and more until you get a buff. Because if you don't, you get a debuff. I love that concept in Monster Hunter. It forces you to be aggressive, where, you could be as careful as you want, or the frenzy can happen and you have to be aggressive. You have to get up there and play risky. Secondly, the next 2 monsters, if I remember correctly, I think the third one is as well, or it could be the same as this. It's weird, the third one in this, like the third one in this line, but Gore Magala, see, like, you have Rathalos, who is a flying wyvern. You have Uragan, who's a brute wyvern. You have Nergigante, he's an elder dragon. And then you have Gore Magala, where from 4 and 4U up until even today in a Rise Sunbreak, we don't know what he is. It's still a question mark to this day. You look at his classification and it's like, I don't know what this is. And I love the air of mystery. Sure, yes, you could lump it up as an elder dragon, but it's not. It's not an elder dragon. I don't know. It's a thing. It's a monster like thing. Hence why I described it as a dragon-esque thing. But yeah, just that thing is amazing. But I said there are 3 in this line, correct? So imagine, if you will, you beat a Gore Magala, dear viewer, and then after you beat the Gore Magala, it starts, like, you leave, you're like, yay, I was successful. But then you notice there's a cinematic where Gore Magala is just walking around, right? Spreading that frenzy and everything. And then all of the black scales on it will literally shed, and it will become a golden dragon. A very beautiful, picturesque perfection of an elder dragon. Which, yes, it is an elder dragon, mind you. It is actually classified. Once it sheds those black scales, it becomes an elder dragon, known simply as Shagaru Magala. And yes, it can still give you the frenzy. Oh, heavens, can it? But it's even more aggressive. It's even more powerful. And then it's just, oh, it's so beautiful. I love Gore Magala's design. I love Shigaru Magala's design. I love the concept of this creature just shedding its skin to be like, I'm even stronger now. And the fight with him, like the first time I fought him in For You, was beauty. Like it was a really good like Apex kind of fight. Like it was a very good like this is the end of the storyline before post game. Post game gets a little crazier, but it is really well. And again, it can frenzy you. So picture if you will, you get frenzied. Now you have to be aggressive to this guy who is even stronger than Gore Magala. But then, like I said, there's a third one. This one is by far the most unique and interesting like concept in my opinion with this. Because I didn't think this could happen. And this is my favorite of the three, but I do like all three of them equally. If I had to choose favorites, I would choose this one as my favorite. So Monster Hunter thought of this. Knew, okay, Gore Magala. This is this. It sheds skin. It becomes Shigaru Magala. Monster Hunter posed the question, what if, as Gore Magala is shedding its scales, it gets stopped somehow? Either it can't shed everything, or it gets interrupted, and it can't fully get those scales off. Enter chaotic Gore Magala, or as I like to call him, Chaos Magala. I think it's still described as like a question mark thing because it's technically still Gore Magala. But this thing, oh, this thing is magnanimously tougher than Shigaru Magala and Gore Magala because they let you know that when Gore Magala sheds its scales, it is painful. Like it hurts. And so since he can't fully get out of his scales, and he's literally like got half Shigaru, half Gore thing going on, mix going on, he is in constant and utter pain. Kind of like Mega Evolutions. Yeah, just read some of those dex entries for like Gen 6 Mega Evolutions. Then you'll see what I mean. But he's in absolute constant pain. So because of that, he has like both aspects of like Shigaru and Gore, and his aggression level goes from like an 8 to like a 15 to 20. And he's like they made him so powerful that he is literally a post-game exclusive monster. No matter which game you play, he is a post-game. He is not part of the story. He is a post-game exclusive. G rank or master rank, whichever you want to call it. Because in the older games it was G rank, newer games it's master rank. But either way, point still stands. He is, oh my gosh, I have fought him one time in I think it was For You actually. I fought him one time. It hurt. I've never been successful with him. I've never successfully beaten one. He hurts a lot. He is insane. He is crazy. But that's just number 2. Number 1. And my roommates, sorry, not my roommates, my fucking, these guys know. These guys know already what I'm about to say. Zinogre and the other 2 of Zinogre. So Zinogre is the peak monster. Not only was he introduced in Monster Hunter 3, but he is just, his design is peak perfection. Like really, really, really good. He is a giant wolf and he is lightning. He is like the embodiment of lightning. He's like if Thor and Zeus and any other like thunder deity got together, fused together and became a wolf with 2 horns and introduced Fulgur bugs, because how else are you going to be? You can't, like, some monsters are like, I'm going to charge up myself and everything like that. But than like actually lightning strike or anything like that. This guy's like, nah, I'm gonna use bugs. I'm gonna use these bugs over here that can produce electricity. And somehow he's like a conduit for this because they make him even stronger. His cry is good. His music, he's got his own theme. His music is peak. Because once you hear it, you know you're in for a good time. Doesn't matter what rank, low rank, high rank, master rank, G rank, X rank, Y rank, Z rank, I don't care. When you see him, you're having fun time. He is very quick. He is very aggressive. Like he's like super aggressive, like almost on the same terms of like Nergigante, where there are moments where he just does not let up. And if you're not prepared, some of his more devastating attacks can one shot you if you're not prepared, because he is that powerful. But not only do we have Zinogre, but we also have a dragon variant called Stygian Zinogre, which in this game, dragon element, I mean, the way I've seen it is like dragon element. It's like lightning, but dark. So because it's like lightning attacks, only it's like completely different element, and they look black and like reddish. And yeah. So same concept, only it's a dragon type, and it has a few other different moves because it's a variant. It is a stronger Zinogre. And this thing just walks up and it's just, devastation everywhere. Now, I'll have to tell you one of my favorite things about regular Zinogre, like how powerful this thing is. But Ultimate, Generations Ultimate, I think 4 did it as well, 4 Ultimate as well, but I can't remember. I just know this one from Generations Ultimate as well. They introduced in one of these games deviants, which are like, there is a deviation with these things, and they make them even more crazy, more aggressive, more powerful, etc., etc. So Zinogre got one. Not Stygian, just regular Zinogre. Literally known as Thunderlord Zinogre. Oh, so Zinogre has like a bluish lightning. Stygian Zinogre has like a blackish red lightning. Thunderlord, he's got gold lightning. His entire fur is like green and gold kind of thing going on. And you thought Zinogre was incredibly, incredibly aggressive. Oh, Thunderlord. Oh, Thunderlord. He is devastating. Like literally, I'm surprised any of the deviants are not like Elder Dragon tier, because this guy is like Kieran on crack cocaine. I'm sure someone mentioned Kieran as a favorite or a worst favorite, or a least favorite one. I don't know. And if not, just Thunder Horse. He's literally a thunder unicorn. Anyway, moving on. But yeah, just the glory of this thing and having to fight him, dude. I would never fight this guy solo. I always had to have friends with me or other people to help me with this thing. This thing can just level an entire playing field kind of thing. But like level the entire thing, and just like with every deviant, he could one shot you many times over. But Zinogre is just my all-time favorite because just I love his design, I love his theme, I love everything about this guy. Yes, I'm not singing as much praises as the Magalas, but trust me when I say this, it's contained, because I kind of went on a huge tangent with those other three. But like the best thing ever is I hadn't seen my boy. I hadn't seen Zinogre for a while, and I was sad. But then in Monster Hunter World Iceborne, yes, the Master Rank expansion to Monster Hunter, and you just get to the post game. You just get to the post game where it's like this amalgamation of all the different areas, and you're just walking through, and there's a Rathalos, which is the apex of the sky, because in World, Rathalos is the apex of the sky, whereas Diablos is the apex of the land, because you have the king of the skies and the tyrant of the land. And you're running around, you see some weird little bugs and everything, you're like, oh, this is cool. Rathalos appears, starts trying to attack the shit out of you. You start running away, and a mysterious figure attacks and makes it go away for a little bit. So you're walking into like the waist area of this area, and all of a sudden, you see Diablos, who is a very tough battle. Just come on up. And then just like starts going ham. But then Rathalos and Diablos are like looking at each other like, oh yeah, we got this. We're gonna fight. We're the top predators here. And then as you see a whole bunch of bugs just like glowing and flying behind you, you see this motherfucker, this giant wolf Zinogre thing coming at you. Just doesn't even introduce him. So if you don't know who this is, you're like, who the hell is this guy? But then you have people like me who are just already wanting to scream at the top of my lungs, like, that's my boy, that's him right there. And what does he do as he walks forward? Just struts slowly towards the king of the sky and the tyrant of the ground. He just struts, walking up unfazed, just like not even caring. You look, and this guy literally side eyes. He doesn't even turn his head at you. He just side eyes you for a brief second and then looks right back ahead and just does not even pay attention to you. He ignores. He's like an in Iceborne, he's like an elder dragon. He doesn't even immediately go for you. He looks at you like, whatever, you mean nothing to me. And then he beats the shit out of Diablos. He beats the shit out of Rathalos, who, again, in World, those two were the top two apexes, in the story at least. And so after they get like beat the fuck away, he just turns to you and says, all right, since you're still here, let's do this. And then you immediately have to leave because that's all you needed to do for this particular mission. But then you have people like me who still hunted it anyway, because I mean, how can you not? Oh, they did so much well with him, and just that cinematic right there is like my all-time favorite. I would have been remiss. This isn't a one above all thing, but I am going to bring an honorable mention to the table for favorite ones. I guess this would technically be like a 4. Is Duramboros. I'm my next question is next question will answer why Duramboros, and I'm not even going to go into details with Duramboros. But these guys over here, they know why Duramboros. They know why Duramboros. One of them can explain it, and if not, it's not really mentioning. But yeah, so it was a very close margin between two and my second favorite and my first favorite. It was a very like you could barely see through that margin. But that is my top 3. My top 3 monsters in the Monster Hunter series. Primary and secondary weapon choices. Well, my secondary choice happens to be the switch axe. I just love the switch axe. It's always like it's always like attracted me to it because sure, yeah, you have a giant axe. What's more badass than a giant axe? Oh, I don't know, maybe a giant axe that turns into a diet greatsword. It's not as strong as the greatsword, but it still is a devastating weapon when used correctly. I love the elemental file things it does. I love the transforming and how easy it can do. Wild Swing is very barbarian like. And all in all, it's just very useful. It's very good for a slashing weapon. Like if you don't have a great sword, you should have at least a great axe, a switch axe, I mean, or a charge blade. Because let's be honest, charge blades are there are some. I know one of these guys is a main with charge blade, so who knows? Maybe this was, or maybe you already heard that someone is a charge blade main before I got to talk. But either way, switch axe for me is my secondary. But now, my number 1, my all-time favorite weapon, my main weapon, is the motherfucking hammer. You know why? Because it's simple, it is devastating good in damage, and look, it's literally, if you play Dark Souls, it's literally the Unga Bunga build. You just go up and you just start beating the shit out of them. And now you could go for, like, the body. You could go for its giant claws on the front so you can break those. No, no, no. If you're hammer, you got to go for the face. You are head on. You are leading the charge and hitting him right on the face, because it's a giant slab of metal or bone on a stick. What can giant slabs of metal or bone on a stick do? That's right, it can stun the fuck out of monsters. That's it. That's what you do. You go up. If it has horns, break them. Break them. If you go up and he's moving around, the monster's moving around and stuff, hit him in the face. You know why? Because then he can get stunned. That's right. Hammer hit head. And let's not discuss like Iceborne and let's not discuss Iceborne and World, because everyone was like, when World and Iceborne came out, "Je suis monté," said the insect glaive. Me finding a hill to fight on, sliding down, doing, in the words of one of my favorite content creators, Scott Falco, doing a flip a dip attack. Yeah, that's right. With a hammer, the hammers can charge up for like 3 levels and do different attacks with each charging up. Well, if you decide to charge up your hammer and start walking towards a hill, you can start, if the hill's steep enough, you start to slide. When you let go of the charge button, you leap in the air and you do a literal sonic spin dash with hammer in hand, and you just pow. It is major damage. And they improved it in let's see, like in World and Iceborne, you could only do that if you found a hill, right? It's not when you jump off a ledge, because you'll just leap off the edge and bam. But like, you had to find a hill, you had to slide down and do that. But in Rise and Rise Sunbreak, they improved it, because not only can you do that when you find a hill and slide down, but you could use a special wire bug, and you could just do it on command. You could goddamn flip a dip on command. Yes, I'm using the term that Scott Falco uses, because how else can you describe it except for Sonic Spin Dash? But yeah, it is the most fun you could ever have. It is. Monster Hunter's ridiculous no matter how you look. And these guys are gonna argue, what the best weapon is. I don't care what the best weapon is. I want fun. I want to have fun. And let's not discuss. Let's not discuss. Oh, sorry. Going back on a topic in World and Iceborne, the Je suis monté would be like, I'm meant for mounting. And but a lot of people didn't know how to mount like very well with the insect glaive when Monster Hunter World and Iceborne came out. Trust me, I've seen a few people who know how to mount correctly, and they're amazing. But for me, why was I mounting more than them? I was the designated mounter in a group of people. I would be the mounter, because that's how I roll. That is what I do, because I'm a goddamn hammer and I am better at it than the insect glaives. At least at the time. But then people finally figured out how to actually mount correctly on it. And then I still mount a lot. So, and then let's not even discuss Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, where they added like the hunter styles. Me, hammer. What did I choose? I chose the aerial style because I wanted to mount the fuck out of everything. But yeah, that's my primary and secondary weapons. So, favorite Capcom series outside Monster Hunter. The examples were given were like Phoenix Wright, Street Fighter, Devil May Cry. Well, mine's none of those ones on the list. My favorite series, one of my favorite series outside of Monster Hunter, was actually Mega Man, particularly Mega Man X series, because Mega Man, blue guy, you're the blue guy, you in the words of Ego Raptor, it was jump and shoot. You jump and you shoot, and you jump and shoot, man. That's all you were. But X series took like the Mega Man series and improved upon it and made it fantastic. Sure, they got like a lot of games. Looks at like all 8 or 9 of them, I think, that they have. But Mega Man X1 through 3 were the ones I played the most, and they just improved so much on it. But yeah, Mega Man X series is my all-time favorite Capcom series outside of Monster Hunter. My opinion on the isekai genre, you know, like Shield Hero, Dot Hack, which is a very good one, Wizard of Oz, which does count. Oh, my personal favorite. I'm kidding, mind you. A Kid in King Arthur's Court and The Matrix. Side note, I actually, as a kid, did watch A Kid in King Arthur's Court and A Kid in Aladdin's Palace. Yes, I did actually watch those growing up as a kid. I wouldn't recommend it, but and they might be some movie garbage stuff if you want, but it's not worth it. But my opinion on the isekai genre, I mean, don't get me wrong, it has its ups, it has its downs, but honestly, the isekai genre is kind of being overplayed nowadays. And as I've said before to some people, the isekai genre can be good if you do it correctly. Eh, if you do it correctly. That's a big old if right there. Just it's just being overplayed. Just like especially if you look at the anime trends going on right now, there are a lot of isekai, and I mean a lot of them. It kind of needs to be downplayed. They need to go to a different genre now, every now and then. But I'm I guess ultimately isekais for me, I'm just on the fence. Like I'm just 50-50. They can be good, but they can be bad too. So that's my opinion on isekai. Do I recognize any actors in this movie aside the Ron Perlman? Ron Perlman, right there. There he is, right there. The man, Ron Perlman. He's there. He's there as the admiral, right there. Like this man. I don't care about anyone else. Milia, the Eater into Diablos. That man, that one right there. That man right there. That's the one. Ron Perlman. He's the good one. He's the great one. No, 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 no. You stop it. Ron Perlman. He's the only important one. He's the only one that I liked in this. Like the other actors, they were okay, and I think Ron Perlman. That's the one right there. Ron Perlman. I recognize him. So Ed has this fascination with Nicolas Cage. Ron Perlman for me. There. That's it. That's it. Just cut, print. That's it. Favorite and well done aspects of the film. So they got them because they got the actual director of Monster Hunter to work on this. Unfortunately, he didn't do any of the writing, which more's the pity. But they they actually got the monster designs correct. Like they did a very good job with that. They got, I think, if I remember correctly, I think isn't that the Monster Hunter language they're speaking, like the legitimate Monster Hunter language? So they got that one good. They actually got some of the sketches like in the admiral's like big old book. They got like the some of the sketches like to a T. They got the sound design of the monsters good as well. And honestly, like all of the Monster Hunter parts were it's they're not bad. Like the Monster Hunter specific parts are not bad. And I would be very remiss if I didn't point this out, especially with my recognizing the actors film like explosion I did about Ron Perlman. The best scene in this entire movie, the absolute top notch best tier. This is the best scene in the entire movie, where you know Mila Jokovic is like, "Thank you," because they don't speak her language. Just thank you so much. And what does the Admiral Ron Perlman do? Just looks at her and goes, "Don't thank me yet," and then punches her in the face. Punches her right in her smug freak face. Now, another, yeah, I love that, but it actually leads me to a different, well done aspect. Unlike Paul W.S. Anderson movies, where he literally idolizes his wife, makes her like god tier, top tier, everything. He actually didn't do that as much. I mean, hell, I can just imagine in his diary that night when they shot that scene. Dear diary, I'm improving. I had my wife get punched in the face by Ron Perlman. But yeah, like they actually didn't make Mila Jokovich's character like super like OP and like the best of the best. In fact, her character in this one, Artemis, I think they refer to her as, like they actually like made her kind of pathetic in a sense. Like she still actually got up and like did some cool action scenes and stuff, but they really didn't make her like this goddess and where everyone else just sucks. Actually, everyone else was like either on par or better than her in this. And I'm like, okay, okay. That's one good thing you did, Paul. Worst poorly handled aspect of the film, everything else. Everything else. Yeah, sure. It took place in the Monster Hunter world type thing, and they kind of did a good, decent job with it. But like a lot of the main characters, like the handler, the serious handler who was there temporarily. I cannot stress how temporary she was in there for. Um, that's a terminal montage joke for any of you. Um, and also like the Ace Fiver, even the Meowscular Chef, like they all were just very minor. Hell, even the Admiral, he was slightly more important, but even he was like like very minor, which I didn't like that. I mean, I did like that it was like a survival with like it was focusing on a solo mission with the hunter who had an escort mission pretty much with Milia Jogovich's character, but it's like some of the other characters could have had more like more stuff, like more screen time and stuff like that, and not be like sidebar characters. Secondly, it would have been a great design if like for the Monster Hunter language, you actually like for the people, for the audience, if they actually had subtitles like to translate what was being said. I i rented it on I rented this movie on Prime, and so their subtitles were kind of weird, so I don't know how it is with other versions of the movie, but like if they had like actual like translation of what the guy like, of what the Monster Hunter language people are saying, and still have like Melia be like, I have no idea what you guys are saying, like I don't know what you this language. um and for Matt's sake, I am going to bring this one up as well because Matt and I can both agree, lack of palicos. There was one palico in that entire like encampment. Like you play any of the Monster Hunter games and palicos are everywhere. Heck, even in like World, which is what this is based off of, like Monster Hunter World, there's even feral tribal ones called Grimalkins. They're not even in this. There was one, and it was the Meowscular Chef, and they made him a long hair, which is weird flex, but um the fact that we only got four major monsters was like a very poor I'm like, come on, show me more. But like just mm, this we needed more. And honestly, don't get me wrong, the action scenes were good and all, but I wanted to see more. Like sure, we got Apsaros and we got one Cephalos, one singular Cephalos, but like come on guys. And let's be honest, I'm going to assume that this is going to be this is going to be put after the movie. So I'm just going to say this stuff as well. Or Matt, you can just edit this, or I don't know. I don't fucking know. Anyway, um I hate the fact that when they're at the Sky Tower fighting Rathalos, she got sent back to her world. And then like there's like, oh, you're back, you're back. I'm sitting here like, this is how they ended it. It's done, it's over. And then Rathalos appears, kind of thing. It's like, oh, okay, Rathalos is here, and Rathalos did not have an end fitting of a king. That was the lamest death ever. But what really, really irks me, especially if you go all the way back to my top three monsters, my number two monsters, that ending where they teased Gore Magala, and they even got the Palico going in for a fight and everything like that. I'm just sitting here like, you're not getting a sequel. I already know you're not getting a sequel. Don't you fucking tease me with a Gore Magala. But like, it's just the Monster Hunter movie, man. Whew. A lot of bad. Like, for every good, there's a lot of bad for this one. It was. How would I pitch a better movie? What monsters would you use? And who would I cast? Ooh, that's a tough one. Like the who would you cast part? Okay, so I'm gonna say this. So the Monster Hunter movie, what I watched, I'm gonna make it easier on myself. I'm gonna take that. Okay, either either I would remove the U.S. Army slash Isekai slash Milia Jokovic thing completely out of it and just focus on the Monster Hunter world. Whereas, like, no Isekai, no people from other world or anything like that. But if it would have just focused on, like, the hunter surviving in the desert pretty much from the beginning up until, like, even the Sky Tower thing with the Rathalos fight, and they just kept it all in the Monster Hunter world, that would have been fine. You could keep the Monster Hunter language, or maybe just for the sake of everyone else, maybe just change it to English, because let's be honest, Monster Hunter games were good like that. Um, and then, like, tease, Gormagala again, because, who's at the top of the tower kind of thing. Just take out the whole Isekai thing and the Milio Jokovic and the US Army thing. Oh, I forgot to mention in my worst and poorly handled aspects of the film, I would be remiss to not bring this up. What's with the HR Geiger ass fucking Nursilla eggs? Am I right? That fucking part was gross. But yeah, either way. Um well, that too. I would not put that in because that's not how Nursilla work. They don't implant eggs in you. Play Monster Hunter stories or something. Actually read up on Nursilla or something like that, man. Um but just like either take out all the isekai out of it or like, maybe do the isekai thing with the US Army and the Milia Jokovic thing. Only instead of having her like leave the world and then come back, kind of thing, like it pretty much happened. Make it so like like she has to stay in the Monster Hunter world, trying to find a way back, and she's sure, yeah, she has to go up to the Sky Tower, and like don't even tease what's up there, or maybe tease it with a roar or something like that. Just like make her stay in that world a little longer if you're going to tease a sequel, or just have them fight Rathalos. Don't even bring Gormagala into it, and be like, okay, we figured it out. Here's a portal to your home. Make your choice, kind of thing. And it's just like, either she'd be like, okay, I'm going home. Leaps in, is home, or make it like, what? I kind of want to stay here. I kind of like what you guys are doing here, and then have her actually just be a hunter now in the Monster Hunter world. But like, Paul W. Sanderson, man, he wrote this movie very horribly. I would honestly just on you know what, this is what I would do. I rambled. I know. I do that. If you watch Action Toon Bros, we do that here. But to pitch a better movie, what monsters to use and who I would cast, all right? Well, I honestly would go with the first aspect. I would take out the isekai part, no Milia Jokovic or any of the US Army kind of thing. I would first off, it would be more accurate to Monster Hunter World, whereas there would be Astera, there would be, the Wildspire Waste, there would be the Elder Recess, there would be the Ancient Forest, there would be the Coral Highlands, there would be the Rotten Vale. Um, all of those aspects would still be there, and include like the commander, include his protege that happens in Iceborne. Just put more palicos in there, make it more lively, more vibrant. Keep the Monster Hunter cast as it is. Yes, I am including bias notwithstanding, Ron Perlman did actually play the Admiral as the Admiral would have been like. Just improve his costume, because he was just dirty. Like, he just looked too dirty. I'll give that one to them. But like, just make it a different story. Like make it the same story. Just not with the isekai, and like, something weird is happening at the Sky Tower. We're gonna go there, and it's being defended by Rathalos, and you find out that maybe throughout it's also kind of like a mystery, because some of the monsters are being way more aggressive, and that's when you find out towards the end, it's a virus, a frenzy virus kind of thing. If we're gonna add Gore Magala into it, like, not change the monsters or in it or anything, just, and like I said, keep the actors. The actors who were on the Monster Hunter side, they did a fine job. They were fantastic. I'm not gonna change them. So that's a different idea I would have. Still better than what we got, but I would. That's how I would pitch it. What other movie garbage films that I've seen were better, like Warcraft or Revenge of the Sith or Willy's Wonderland, etc., etc.? So I'm not going to put Willy's Wonderland. I'm not going to say Willy's Wonderland, because that is absolutely better than that's actually good tier quality. I'm going to go with some of the lesser ones. So honestly, yeah, sorry, I'm giving it some thought, and that I've seen that were better. Warcraft is on par with Monster Hunter, because Warcraft wasn't bad, and it took itself seriously, but more seriously than like Monster Hunter kind of did. But it still wasn't that great, right? Um, Revenge of the Sith was really was good. Like, Revenge of the Sith, it wasn't good, like, mind you, but I mean, it was still better than Monster Hunter. Surprisingly enough, however, fucking Freddy Got Fingered, and like, Matt, I think Freddy Got Fingered is the one that everyone's like, this is the best movie ever. No, it is not. But I will say, The Last Airbender was still 10 times worse than, like, it is still worse than Monster Hunter. Because see, if you're gonna cater to your audience, fucking do it with like an actual creator of. Then again, I don't know. Maybe the last Airbender did have the creator helping out with it or something like that. I don't know. But at least, like, with Monster Hunter, they actually got the director of Monster Hunter to be like, okay, you're not gonna Resident Evil this, Paul W.S. Anderson. These are what the monsters are gonna look like. This is how it works. I don't care about writing the script. You're getting all of the Monster Hunter stuff correct, which is probably the only saving grace that movie had. So ultimately, like, I'm gonna say, Warcraft was on par. Revenge of the Sith was slightly better. Willy's Wonderland, that's not fair. That's not fair. We have to put that one as a high one. But like, just The Last Airbender and Freddy Got Fingered are still way below. And I'm gonna add this one, because even though this wasn't necessarily a question that was asked, this movie was bad. This movie was absolutely bad. But to me, at least, it's like one of those, it's so bad, but you still can get a fucking laugh out of it. Just like, you can laugh your ass off about it and actually point and laugh, because I mean, Mila Jovovich got beat the fuck up. Like, she got beat the fuck up by people who were better than her. And how can you top the Ron Perlman punching Mila Jovovich in the face? Come on. But anyway. But yeah, just this movie is bad. This movie is, I didn't like it. However, it was still somewhat enjoyable, especially all the Monster Hunter parts to it. What movie should we cover next? And by we, I mean Matt. This is a Matt choice, by the way. Hey, Matt. So, just between you and me, you should do Sadako versus Kayako, aka The Ring versus The Grudge. That's the next one you should do. I don't care about iCarly and Victorious crossovers. Nobody fucking cares about that. Do the Sadako versus Kayako. Do The Ring versus The Grudge. Please. Please, for the love of anything that is holy. Thank you so much, and have a fantastically wonderful day, my friends.
Hi there, my name's Chris, a friend of the podcast, and I was asked a few questions by Matt Lewis, who wanted to know my thoughts on the Monster Hunter movie, and he gave me a list of questions to answer, and so I am doing that now. I did write down a bunch of notes from them, and some of them might get a little long-winded, so hopefully this won't take too long, or it won't get too bored of me talking. Okay, so first question he asked is top 3 and bottom 3 monsters from the Monster Hunter games. Well, thing about that is I don't really have many strong feelings on any one monster in terms of like giving them an overall rank tier. So I've instead decided to go to answer that question in a slightly different approach, to kind of give it my top 3-ish categories, or I should say, like 3 categories, and kind of choose one monster for each one. So top 3 and bottom 3 categories. So my first top 3 category is the monster that made me laugh the most, and I chose Xantrios, mostly because of its inflation phase. It just every time that it would just puff up and just become this absolute enormous blob of what I assume is mostly air, and it's just rolling around, hopping around. I can only ever imagine it just having this absolutely hilarious voice, just like, "Oh, hello there, kiddies. My name is Xantrios. Here I am. Oh, pretty blah. I'm going to get you." And it just rolls around. I just can't take it seriously. It is so freaking funny to me every single time. And then it just deflates and then just... I love it. I love it so much. Okay, so that's Xantrios. My next top category is what is my most interesting set piece fight. This would be like your sort of ultimate or penultimate fights, the big epic final battles-ish type of deal, and I chose Atal Ka from Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. That fight is so interesting because it is not only a monster that you'd fight in a typical size that you're normally used to from all the monsters previously, but then it switches over to fighting in this gigantic mech monster that you had to hit in the right places to get it to fall down. Then you get to climb on it and then hit the weak points. And it's just it's a really, really cool like multi-phase fight that just has you fighting a monster normally and then also fighting essentially that world's version of a mech. And it's really interesting. It really keeps me on my toes. It's very different, very interesting. And my next top category is what's my most interesting non-set piece battle mechanic, or monster with my most interesting non-set piece type of battles mechanics. And I chose Nibblesnarf for that one. From I believe they were introduced in 4, maybe 3. I don't actually remember the specific game it was introduced in, but I remember fighting it quite a lot in Generations. That's where a lot of my experience from the games comes from, is Generations, Rise, and to some extent Monster Hunter World. But mostly I chose Nibblesnarf because of the fishing mechanic that it has as part of the fight. So when Nibblesnarf goes underground, you can set up a bomb to try and lure it into rising up and eating the bomb instead of you. And when it does that, it'll explode and then kind of get into this like fumbly, flopping around kind of state. And then you're then prompted, if you're in the right position, to throw your fishing rod and actually try to fish it out of the ground, like you would in a normal fishing minigame in that universe, and then in the main game. And then when you succeed, it'll just come out and just start flopping around on its side as part of the proper knockdown. I just thought, not not many fights do that. I mean, obviously you have, monsters get stunned, or they just get exhausted, or they get, you trip them, you flop them over. But only Nibblesnarf is the one monster that in my recent memory I can recall where you actually have to fish it out of the ground before it topples over. I thought that was really interesting. And then I guess it's sort of an honorable mention of a top category is a monster with the best battle track. I'm a bit of a video game music nerd, and I chose Valstrax for its song Silver-Winged Star, or it might translate to Silver-Winged Scarlet Star in Generations. In Generations Ultimate, that's what the literal translation of its song is Silver-Winged Scarlet Star. But when it came over as Crimson Valstrax in Rise, the track was released and it was just called Silverwing Star. Anyway, but it's just it's not only a really epic sounding battle track. I mean, it's really hard to find, to list, or just choose a best one. And I ended up going with Valstrax partly because it is an absolute banger. I recommend you go check it out. But what's kind of interesting is on the CD release of the Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate CD expansion, it was called the Double Cross, Monster Hunter Double Cross Hunting Collection, I believe it was called. It was Japanese only. On that CD, they actually released a bonus track in the form of that song, but it was a rock arrangement, an official rock rearrangement from Capcom, and honestly, it just slaps hard. It is so good. It was just so great to not only release a song, but then immediately pay homage to itself like that. It's fantastic. Highly recommend. Some other honorable mentions for really good tracks are Spark of Blue when fighting Zenogre, the Lunar Abyss and Moonquake when fighting Cedius, Beast with Fire upon its back while fighting Zora Magdaros, Ruler Flame when fighting Teostra, and then Immovable Mountain God when fighting Gammoth. All really great stuff. Okay, so now my bottom three categories is what is my most interesting, or sorry, most frustrating, I should say, monster to fight. Rajang. If you do not know that fight really well, Rajang will absolutely just beat your face in. It is such a wall of a monster. Holy crap. And even in lore, the way that it can just absolutely just demolish monsters that are several times its own size with those just absolute hulking, beefy arms that it holy crap. That thing will just absolutely beat your shit in if you're not careful. It takes quite a while to become comfortable enough to fight it, and it took me way too long. I lost so many times to that thing. It's only recently, I think, I've been getting back into Rise in the last few months or so, where I'm actually finally, all of my training and all of my knowledge has culminated to the point where I can actually fight Rajang and actually kind of win on some consistency. Then what is... my next bottom category would be, what is the biggest nuisance of a monster? Not necessarily the most frustrating to fight, but what would I consider the biggest nuisance? Now this one's a little bit cheating because it's not technically a large monster, but Conchu. If you played classic Monster Hunter, especially 4 and Generations Ultimate, you know what I'm talking about. Oh my god, that little absolute shit has interrupted so many battles in my time in Generations. It is a meme, and it is just such a point of pet peeve focused hatred that I have for this thing. But okay, like I said, that was a bit cheating. So for an actual large monster, probably Betelgeuse, and I acknowledge that it's pretty much designed that way. If I remember right, its official tagline is quite literally the invading tyrant. It's just if Betelgeuse is on the field, no matter what you're doing, no matter what other monster you're fighting, after a few minutes of fighting, he'll just come in and be like, "Hey guys, what's happening? Can I come too? Can I play? Huh?" It's like, Hazel, please, I will get to you later. Leave me alone. But yeah. Then my last bottom category is, which monster am I generally least interested in fighting? This one was, for reasons I kind of stated at the top of this whole thing, was I don't have many strong feelings on many of those monsters, but so I had to really think about this one. And the one that I thought was kind of like the most forgettable, the one I probably don't ever see myself fighting ever again, would be called Tarath from Monster Hunter World. It seemed like I just didn't really care for the concept of a siege fight that required not just multiple people in your party, but also multiple hunts in general in order to properly quote unquote complete it. And it was just influenced by people online that were just not in your party. It seemed like I could see it being an interesting idea on paper, but it just really wasn't for me. Really, all I really wanted in a hunt is just I start the hunt, I go to the monster, we kill it or capture it, and that's it. That's the hunt. There's no like carryover to like the next time you complete a quest or something. That's just the style of hunt that I personally want. And from what I understand, I also didn't play much because apparently this fight was also responsible for getting certain kinds of RNG weapons, and that in order to get the best ones, it became really, really grindy, from what I understand. And just like, nah, fan, that's just not for me. I mean, we're already having RNG enough as it is, because based with decorations and charms, depending on what game you're playing. We that's all we don't really need any more than that. Please, this game's already big enough as it is. I'm already pouring hundreds of hours into this game, into these games as it is. So that's the first. All right, so that's my top 3 and bottom 3 monster categories. The next question I'm asked is, what are my primary and secondary weapon choices? The primary choice is Charge Blade. It will always be Charge Blade. So everyone, occasionally on my guild card, I'll actually just hope that I get the tags of Charge Blade and President, and then just call myself Charge Blade President. But the Charge Blade is a really great weapon because it has a very high skill ceiling, I think. Not to say that others don't, but I think that Charge Blade in particular has a really high skill ceiling with a big payoff as far as like when you like really understand its nuances, and when you like really get to understand all the fine details of how it's used, when it's used, like when you're in the middle of a combo, what next attacks you have access to. Like you can you start off with your first slash, then you can go into like you can either do your normal combo, you could do your shield thrust, but then after your shield thrust you could continue with another random combo, or from shield thrust you could directly just go straight into your amped elemental discharge and stuff like that. And then also, and throughout the whole thing, then you also have the idea of like where are your guard points, and like when do you have access to being able to do your guard point at the end of a combo. What are moments when you can use your guard points to just kind of give yourself an emergency block when you're in the middle of a combo and a monster's coming at you, and stuff like that. It's an excellent balance of offense and defense with just a lot of understanding and a lot of things to learn about how it feels. And when you get to that point where you've more or less mastered the weapon, you can feel like a literal god in fights. You can feel like an absolute powerhouse, an unstoppable force, just being able to block at the right times, attack at the right times, build up your charge, get all the files you need really quickly, and then just go for a big wombo combo, big at amped elemental discharge. It's so great. I love the Charge Blade so much. It's always been my main, and it will probably always be my main. Not to say that I won't try other weapons, but Charge Blade will always hold a special place in my heart, I think. Then my secondary choice would be, I'd say, Dual Blades. It's very good for a high octane mobility, like much less about being defensive and more about nimbleness and dodging, with quite high offensive payoff. And I don't know, maybe I like seeing the big damage numbers. I like being able to to zip around the field and avoid attacks. And then in later iterations, I believe it was starting with World, is when you jump off a cliff or an edge while you're in demon mode, and then you attack the monster, and then you can just pull a fucking Captain Levi from Attack on Titan, just go like meow, and just see those damage numbers just rack up the entire time you're doing it. It feels incredible to pull off. Absolutely incredible. Let's see. My next question I've asked is, what is my favorite Capcom series outside of Monster Hunter? Now, this one was tough, but I'd say my absolute favorite Capcom series would be Ace Attorney. With Resident Evil is a close second. Ace Attorney, I actually started and fell in love with it back in the DS days. This I think I might have been in like high school at the time when I first heard about it, and I fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with the story, despite the fact that, you know, like, at least at the time, I didn't really understand just how wacky and like how out there the localization was compared to the Japanese releases. Just not realizing that, okay, all these characters are clearly in California and definitely not Japan. That's what they would have you believe if you played the English release. The music was excellent, like memorable music. I listened to the soundtrack of that for hours and hours and hours. They had official arrangements in like a jazz versions. They had an official arrangement of in orchestral versions that were also just absolutely fantastic. There was this one in I think Japanese indie group called Magical Trick Society that released their own cover of songs, and that also just, it hooked me so much. I love Ace Attorney so much. Yeah, the super interesting stories that unfold of, you know, like, you're not just a defense attorney, you're also sort of an investigator, you're also sort of a detective, and the stories can get really interesting as you get deeper into them. And then just being able to, or just, I guess, going through the process of using your logic to combat your enemies is also just really, really interesting. Very, very, very mentally stimulating. I love Ace Attorney so much. And then, like I mentioned, Resident Evil is, it gives you the high dopamine, high octane ability of, like, you are superpowered human, you have big guns, and you have to shoot big enemies. You have to shoot the zombies. You know, shooting zombies is always a great time, but you also, like, at the same time, you also are made to feel powerless, mostly because of your limited ammo. And so not only are you shooting down zombies, you're consciously having to be aware of how much ammo you have, and having to know, like, is this fight worth having? What's the most effective way to take down this enemy? Do I have enough ammo to take this thing down and still press on, or should I run past it? Should I take a different route? And it really just makes you think. And I think the games are just designed really, really well with that balance in mind. Always just that sense of, like, I might have enough ammo so I can go take it on, or I might not have enough and I need to find a different path. The Resident Evil games are just so great. The level of design is, you know, cinematic, especially in the old games where everything was just fixed camera angles. That just they were great ways to. It was great how they could use camera angles to make it so that they don't show you the monster until you might, like, go around the corner, and then only then with the camera reposition, and then all of a sudden there's just a big monster in your face, and you're just like, oh god, and then you just have to just beat its shit in, or or try to run around, or try to go back, and it's great for surprises. It constantly makes you feel on edge. And then, of course, there's the puzzle aspect of it. I do love games with good puzzles, especially the ones that, like, really make you think. So, yeah, Ace Attorney and Resident Evil. The next question is, what's my opinion on the isekai genre? Not necessarily just in this movie, but also just in general, which I personally see done most often in anime. I'm a big anime nerd, so I honestly, it's been done countless over and over and over again for years and years and years, and all kinds of shows coming out with that concept. Honestly, I love it. I'm kind of a slut for it. It's been done to hell and back, but I just love it, especially in, like, more recently released anime. Like, you have animes where you're isekai'd into a world of an otome game and you're the villainess, or or another one where you're isekai'd into an otome game as a villainess, but you're a man. And then, of course, you have your classics, like Sword Art Online. I'm struggling to think of ones at the moment. I'm sure that there's at least a couple of them being or airing in this current season. But yeah, isekai, I'm all for it. I'm here for it. Like I'm a piece of anime trash. My next question asked is, do I recognize any of the actors in the films? Mila Jovovich. I absolutely recognize her from the Resident Evil live action films. I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen at least the first 3, maybe 4. Was it like Resident Evil? And then I forget what the second one was, and then the third one was Apocalypse. I think that was, yeah. And I saw a couple more after that. I don't recall their names, but yeah, Mila Jovovich, yeah, good actress. I like her work. And then also Ron Perlman as the Admiral. Holy crap! I was so excited to see him there. I don't really know about him much from his his live action acting. Like I know he was in the Hellboy films. I think I only ever saw the first one, so I haven't seen much of his live acting work. But I have seen several of his voice acting work, where he was Slade in Teen Titans, the 2003 version. The narrator of the Fallout series, yeah, he was the war never changes guy. And I was kind of, it took me a few, because I played through 3 in New Vegas, and I think it wasn't until 4 that I actually learned, holy crap, that's Ron Perlman. Oh, that's great. And then he was Vice Principal Lancer and Danny Phantom, apparently in Fire Lord Sozin at one point, at least in one episode of Avatar: Last Airbender. And then apparently he had a couple of like 1 or 2 offs in like Adventure Time and Chowder, which I was surprised to see when I looked at his IMDb page. Oh, and then when I took these, the day that I took these notes, probably like a week or so ago, I was today years old when I learned there was apparently a quote-unquote new Teen Titans show released in 2011, which is really not so much a show and more of a collection of just little minute-long shorts that are very much based in the original 2003 show. And I mean, they're all right. They're okay, I guess. It's a similar animation style, but everyone was so chibified. Everything was chibi. Everyone was chibi. Oh my god. But all the voice actors were still there. The animation style was very much in that same vein, same shading, same color choices, color palettes, and all that. It was not like Teen Titans Go. Oh god, don't get me started on that fucking show. But anyway, yeah, Ron Perlman, good actor. Mila Jovovich, great actors. And unfortunately, those are really the only ones that I personally recognized. Okay. Next question that I asked is, what is my favorite, or what do I think was the most well done aspect of the film? And for me, I think it was the CG. As one who is a fan of the Monster Hunter games, the thing that I paid attention to the most were the weapons and the monsters themselves. And so with that in mind, I was most keen on identifying like the CGI and the monster models themselves, and I think that they were extremely well done. Like, holy crap, they put a lot of attention, a lot of detail into those things. I was very, very impressed. Like Diablos was spot on, like down to the eyes, and Rathalos, the scales, the edges, the spikes, the eyes, everything was so meticulously well done and well crafted. I could tell that whoever was in charge of those models, they really knew what they were doing. If they weren't huge fans of the games themselves, they were at the very least very, very keen on detail and making sure that it was faithful to the source as possible. And whoever I don't know off the top of my head who was in charge of that, but they did a fantastic job, leading their team, if not doing some of the work themselves. They really, really fantastic, very detailed, very faithful to the games. I was very impressed. Next question I have is, what is my worst or poorly handled aspect of the film? This one was something I noticed kind of at the beginning / first half of the film. It took over half of the movie for Mila Jovovich's character to find someone with whom she could actually communicate and actually talk to. Because speaking with the hunter, who's speaking in presumably like a monster hunter gibberish language, I'll be honest, it was kind of cringe that it went on as long as it did. Like, not the fact that it happened at all, but the fact that it went on as long as it did. And that it wasn't until the second half of the film where she actually could talk to somebody, and that we actually could have some manner of conversation. Because up until that point, oh my god, I felt like I was watching a white person try to talk at a Spanish person, not to, but at a Spanish person who doesn't understand English. oh, holy crap. It was so hard to watch. I was just waiting for that moment where it's like, oh, well, clearly there's just going to be some magical object that will let them just speak like normal humans, right? She's going to find someone else who she can talk, who speaks English, right? Right? Why is it already 50 minutes into the film? Oh, God. But it took so long. They should have brought in, I think, Ron Perlman's character a lot sooner than that. But my guess is they probably paced it the way they did because they were expecting to make a sequel. The end of the movie kind of shows that. My next question, as I'm asked, is how would you pitch a better movie? What monsters would I use and who would I cast? If I'm being really honest, my pitch would be don't make it a movie at all. Make it a series. Live action or anime, it doesn't really matter. Just make it a series. Give it more screen time. Give the story more breathing room to be able to flesh out into a really good, deep, connected, story with good sequence. It's a good sequence and a satisfying high climax and a satisfying conclusion. A movie, I don't think is just going to be at least a single, roughly 90-ish minute film is just not going to be enough for that. I don't think. At least not if you're trying to kind of represent the entire Monster Hunter franchise. Absolutely not. No, that's way too short. So yeah, probably just keep everything in game universe. Don't do isekai is what I would do. I would maybe err more on the side of like taking a page out of the Monster Hunter stories, like spin-off games, and maybe try to make a TV series based on that. I think that would work. I think that might translate pretty well. Although I guess technically they have an anime, don't they? Monster Hunter Riders, I think it is. I think that's what. Yeah, there was some kind of anime related to Monster Hunter. So I guess they've already done it. How about that? But let's see. The monsters I would use, I would probably go with Rathalos because, of course, it's the poster child for the entire freaking game, entire franchise. I would include the meme monsters just because of the memes. Like you've got, I would include Devil Joe as the pickle, Basil Geese as the B-52 bomber, and Sergio as Steve. Good old Steve. Beyond that, I'd probably try to include like Legiacris because it's a fan favorite that just has been spurned for way too long and needs to come back. I probably have at least some representation of like Rajang fighting a Gammoth to kind of simulate the idea of like what happens when an unstoppable force moves or is fighting an immovable object. Then probably just cameo as many like small monsters and like biomes as I probably it's like they don't need to be on screen for very long, maybe like a few seconds per shot. I would probably want to include like Teostra, Kushala, and Chameleos as the sort of like rock paper scissors trio of the elder dragons, and then at least one giant set piece elder dragon, maybe Otto-Ka or Cedius if I wanted to get to represent like underwater combat, something like that. As far as casting goes, no one in particular really comes to mind. Then again, like I don't really have that many strong opinions on like who acts in what film, so I don't really. No real names come to mind, but I would ideally prefer actors that are major fans of the game series, because the more into the games they are, the more the bigger fans they are, the more likely they will be to give the games justice and really try to stay faithful to the original source. We don't want another M. Night Shyamalan Avatar situation, now do we? Let's see. Next is... The next question I'm asked is, what other movie garbage films that I've seen were better than this one? I know that movie garbage hasn't done all that many, covered all that many films at the time of recording, but other ones that they've done that I have seen, I would probably say Warcraft, which is it was pretty good. I'm not really a World of Warcraft film World of Warcraft. God damn, what's the word? I'm blanking. I don't play very much World of Warcraft myself. I don't know much about the lore of the universe, but when I watched the film, I actually had a pretty good time. It definitely catered to me as just a moviegoer and not necessarily a fan of the games. I think maybe fans is the word I was looking for. God damn it. But yeah, oh, and then Willy's Wonderland. Oh my lord, that movie was just damn near peak cinema. In addition to, I am a fan of like the FNAF, I guess, movie style and movie tropes, even though I haven't played very many of the games. But just the idea of, you know, like ghost possessed animatronics is it's an interesting story archetype, I think. But Nicolas Cage is the primary reason why I love that movie so much, because his presence in that film is so spot on. It is so prominent, and all of it is highlighted by the fact that he had literally zero spoken dialogue throughout the entire film. It was incredible, the stage presence he had in that film, having literally zero dialogue. It will always, to me, just be absolutely incredible, fantastic acting. And then aside from that, the Banana Splits, not as good of a FNAF-like, I would say, but it's still enjoyable. I still like the idea of, actually, I don't think in that one it was technically spirits were inhabiting the animatronics. I think that was just like a bad software update or something like that. But in any case, animatronics that go haywire and kill humans, I'm all for it. And finally, I am asked, which movie should they cover next? And it's a toss-up between either a comparison of The Ring versus The Grudge, or a comparison of, or covering of just the film of I Party with Victorious. And I'd probably go with the former, The Ring versus The Grudge. I'm more interested in those horror films and those horror universes than I am with really anything out of the Dan Schneider TV universe. So, yeah. Those are my questions. That's all. Those pretty much encapsulate my thoughts on the Monster Hunter film. It was, it's good, not great. The ending very much spoke to me as they were banking on and expecting there to be a sequel. I don't know if they'll get one, and hopefully Gore Magala can save it and actually make for a decent sequel. It's hard to say, but yeah. Those are my thoughts, and I'm glad I could be included in this. And this is Chris, friend of the podcast, signing off.
All right, and we are back from listening to our boys' responses.
Definitely, I'll give credit to both Ben, because I did forget about the Khezu, and I agree that it is just a worse Giganauts, who deserves to come back. I think we all can agree on this.
Yeah, Giganauts is fun. It's gross. It's weird.
That thing was gross and weird. Khezu was just weird and boring. Mm-hmm. Also, I didn't think... I initially thought, do I talk about small monsters? But... Conchu's
comedically shitty.
Yes.
Since Jan Kutku, I think, is coming back in Worlds, they both feared that Conchu might be back. Conchu might be back.
Listen, I don't have time to think about that. I just have time to enjoy Chris telling us how much of a slut he is for the genre, which I did not know. So I have learned something new.
I know that. Yeah, him and Ben both watch Shield Hero, and like I said, they're fans of that, of course.
So I said I never even thought about the genre, so I give. I never really thought about it, but for him to specifically talk about how much of a slut he is for it, I wasn't expecting that, and I'm glad to have learned something new about my brother. So, I knew about their weapons, of course.
Yeah, we've hunted with them for hundreds of hours. We know their weapons.
Yeah, and I kind of had a hunch too that not only, both of them, I know they're not the biggest. They know a few things here and there. Capcom, like I said. Ben really liked Mega Man, Chris Ace Attorney and Resident Evil. I knew that, but I think what's kind of shocked me the most is that they either haven't seen enough good movies, or B, ranked this that low that it was near the bottom of their lists, they're bottom of the list adjacent.
Yeah, of course.
So also, I'll give credit to Chris too. As much as I don't like the nibble snarf, I do appreciate the bomb mechanic.
Yeah, it was very cool. The fishing one for was it Gobel or Nibble Snarf that had the fishing out of
that was the Nibble Snarf. I think you could fish for the Gobel, but it was like a lot harder to do. Mm-hmm. You can easily do it with the Nibble Snarf. Yeah. Also, yes, the Zamtrios blowing up like that is very funny.
Very fun.
It is kind of goofy that it's this like intense little shark thing. And
I love all of its forms.
I'm a big boober. Honestly, I'm wondering though, did we get that? Are we gonna see if we see the what's it called, Tetradocian, the Copa Kappa one.
Oh yeah, the weird little
he blows up just
he
like
does.
them.
Yeah. I would love for them to. Yeah, I would love for that one to come back.
So, also, I don't agree, but I can see from an aspect how Mila and the Hunter talking is like that. I saw a lot of their person-to-person interactions, and I saw a lot of the physicality, and I appreciated the physicality, but I can see where some of the dialogue, and honestly, I could see it because of chocolate, bait, chocolate. But that was a fun, crazy hour to add on, hour plus to add on to our already 5-hour long podcast. I could literally listen to this from when I clock in at work to when I leave at work.
Seriously, yeah, this is like more than half of my
and
shift.
I'll made it work the full day, I'm sure.
This is insane. But so, yeah, of course, we've tallied up their votes. We have 2 votes for Sadako versus Kayako, and of course, me being the real podcast host here, my vote's twice as much, and
co-host.
say... co-host.
I'm the host.
Yeah, co-host. Well, your vote's twice as much too, Ed, so don't worry. I said I partied with Victorious, just so I can shout about Dan Schneider and, of course, the Nickelodeon sitcom universe. But now the tiebreaker is, of course, our host of the pod and whose movie this was, and it is all up to Ed.
Well, clearly my opinion matters so much, and is taken as just gospel after choosing this film. Mm-hmm. Though I guess to be fair, this is truly movie garbage. So yeah, I think I guess I do make good choices, don't I? Mm-hmm. Well, Chris and Ben did both vote for the Sadako versus Kayako. If you had said that as well, I would have been like, all right, go with that one. But they're both not on the podcast.
Yeah, I told them we were probably going to disregard their opinions anyway.
Listen, I appreciate their opinions and input, but they're not going to be on the next episode, and I am. Mm. And, I'm going to keep obviously Dan Schneider can go fuck himself. Terrible person and unmountable harm. And we can talk about that more because we're going to do I Party with Victorious.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because I also, even though I have not seen as much outside of Drake and Josh, I know about the others, and also Nickelodeon is a subject that I think, after talking about the video games we've talked about for a lot, I think talking about...
We're going to have about twice as long of a thing about probably as long, hopefully.
I think that I feel like we're going to talk a lot less and be less animated about the movie itself than we will about everything ahead of time.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, this is a sitcom universe, and it is way bigger than you think. And it is actually specifically...
And I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like it's going to be we're going to get to the movie and then not be arguing. We're going to be once again in agreement.
Yeah.
And I also got to say, if you think about that, how much do you appreciate the fact that despite you being much more negative during the film discussion and me much more positive, you theoretically ranked it higher.
Yeah, I ranked it higher than you did.
I put The Last Airbender technically better than this
above
film.
Intense. But I partied with Victorious.
I will stand by, again, I think this is not a poorly put together film. But that one voice that cursed it, The Last Airbender... Man, did I fuck up? I think I fucked up.
Well, hey, like I said, we reorganize our lists every single time. I think by the time you guys hear the list at the end of the next episode, who knows where anything will be. I'm going to make a quick correction before that, though. Oh, okay.
I think this is second to last. Oh, but the last... But
he'll have till the next recording to think about it. But
I will have the next recording.
In the meantime, technically, I think it's episode 10 of season 4 of iCarly, but it is a 3-part episode crossover with Victorious called I Party with Victorious. It should be on Paramount Plus. The official release is like 69 minutes, nice, but there is an extended 85-minute version. I think you're probably just going to have to look up the extended cutscenes on YouTube or whatever. But if you have the time, Quiet on Set, or if you have the time, Jeanette McCurdy's book, I'm Glad My Mom Died, absolute mega recommendation. It is an incredibly important fucking story that should be definitely told.
And again, I haven't read that book.
We'll go into full.
But I will say that it has been pointed out that a lot of people don't understand what that title means and are misunderstanding what "I'm Glad My Mom Died" actually means. If you hear that title and you're offended, listen to the book.
There's a lot to talk about because even at the top, there's going to be a lot of. We're going to be very nostalgic for Nickelodeon. For a very long time,
we are both.
Of course, we'll get into it, but
yes.
It is. We're gonna also cover some very. We're probably gonna have to put like a trigger warning, something. I'm not joking. Probably at the beginning of the discussion of this because of what happens in that book and what happens in Quiet on Set. It is some really dark and really intense material that we'll probably be covering
I think we'll have to definitely plan that discussion to be its own section that can be easily bypassed.
Of course. But we will see you guys next time. Keep it easy. My God, what the hell is my cat into? Okay. Oof.
Wait. Also too, because either A, this will come out somehow before Monster Hunter Wilds, which gear up.
Hell
if
yeah.
you haven't,
get hunting.
Or if this comes out after it, also win a farm engagement. So tell us your favorite monster and your main weapon in the comments of this video. And until we go to the next one, as we both said, I'm sure at the end of this movie, oof, magoof, Goofy's Gambit.
Nice.